The heel of my muddy boot squealed across Italian marble, a sound so wrong it made my teeth tighten. Georgetown's penthouse hallway smelled like lemon polish and money. Clean, bright, untouchable. My ACUs still held the sting of diesel and sweat from a 48-hour logistics scramble on base, the kind that left grit under your nails and a metallic taste at the back of your throat. I kept my duffel hugged to my side as if fabric could soften the impact of me existing in this museum of a home. I tried to step lighter. I tried not to scuff anything. I tried, out of habit, to make myself smaller. Then I heard my husband's voice. Not in our bedroom, not in private. From the living room on speaker with laughter behind it. I stopped in the hallway, one hand still on the doorframe, and listened as the penthouse's soft lighting turned everything into a stage I hadn't agreed to stand on. "Look, she's loyal," Marcus said. Like a guard dog. And 4 words hit, then a 5th that sliced. "Loyal? Enough." A man chuckled on the line. Marcus continued, smooth as poured whiskey. "She thinks service is value." 7 words. He made it sound like a childish hobby. Someone asked something I couldn't catch, and Marcus answered with a bright, careless ease that turned my stomach. "She's bad debt," he said. "A bad investment." 4 words. Clean, cruel. My pulse didn't spike the way it used to when rounds went off too close. It went cold instead, like a switch had flipped behind my ribs and the heat of me had been replaced by pure, disciplined focus. I took one more step forward and the marble complained again under my boot. Marcus didn't lower his voice. He didn't mute the call. He didn't have to. He thought I was still the woman who apologized for taking up space. "She came from nothing," he added, like he was describing a stain. "Poverty mindset." 2 words, a verdict. The living room opened up in front of me, glass walls, city lights, a minimalist couch that looked like it had never held a human body in grief. Marcus stood by the bar cart in a crisp button-down, phone on the counter, a tumbler in his hand. His cufflinks caught the light like tiny weapons. He turned and saw me. For a half second, his smile froze mid-performance. Then it recalibrated, perfect and effortless, like he could rewrite reality with his face. "Damara," he said, "you're home." 3 words. Warm. Fake. I stared at him without moving. My duffel strap cut into my shoulder. My ACUs felt heavier in this room, as if the fabric itself understood it wasn't welcome. I nodded toward the phone. "Who's listening?" 3 words. Even. Marcus glanced at the screen like it was a minor inconvenience. "Work!" 1 word. Dismissal. On the speaker, someone made a low sound, amused, curious, like I was a rumor that had walked into frame. Marcus leaned his hip against the counter, still smiling. "Captain Ellis," he said into the phone. "Say hi." 6 words. He offered me up like entertainment. I didn't speak. The silence stretched, and the person on the line stopped laughing. Marcus's smile tightened just a fraction. He lifted his tumbler, took a slow sip, and watched me the way men watched markets. Calculating, assessing, deciding what to do with an asset that had started asking questions. I stepped closer until I could see the phone screen clearly. A group call. Names I didn't recognize. A finance bro chorus. His world. Marcus lowered his voice, but not enough. "We're discussing restructuring." 2 words floated like smoke. Restructuring. I let my duffel drop to the floor. The thud was soft, but it landed like an answer. "What are you restructuring?" I asked. 3 words. Controlled. Marcus's eyes flicked over my ACUs again, lingering at the dirt on my knees like it offended him personally. "Us." 1 word. Cold. The room seemed to tilt. Not because I was surprised. We'd been living in his contempt for years, only I'd kept calling it stress. The tilt came from the clarity. From hearing him say it out loud to an audience. On the speaker, a man said something quick and approving. Marcus's smile returned, wider now, emboldened by witnesses. "I need to liquidate," Marcus said, "without a scene." 6 words. He said, "liquidate," like I was a stock. I felt my wedding ring suddenly, cold metal hugging my finger, heavier than it should have been. A diamond, that had once looked like a promise and now felt like a tag. I remembered the day he put it on. We'd been at a restaurant with white tablecloths, and Marcus had spoken about legacy like it was a language. He'd held my hands and said I was different, that my discipline was rare, that I made him feel grounded. I'd believed him because I wanted to, because I had grown up with a father who measured love in overtime shifts and calloused hands, and Marcus's attention had felt like a door opening into comfort. My dad's factory had smelled like hot metal and oil. He'd come home with grime in the creases of his knuckles and still kissed my forehead like I was worth the ache. He used to tell me, voice steady over the hiss of the kitchen sink, "Don't let them price you." I had joined the Army because I liked rules that didn't shift with someone's mood. I became a logistics officer because I understood systems, how to move what mattered where it needed to go, on time, under pressure. I learned to measure cost in fuel and lives, not in whatever men like Marcus called risk. Somewhere along the way, I'd started letting him appraise me anyway. Now he was doing it with an audience. Marcus lifted his tumbler again, watching me for reaction. "You're not built for this life." 6 words. A cut aimed at my roots. I exhaled slowly. "Then keep it?" 3 words. Quiet. His brows rose, surprised, like he hadn't expected me to give him what he wanted without begging. On the speaker, someone murmured, "Damn." Marcus's smile sharpened. "You can't take anything." 4 words. He enjoyed that. I stared at him and felt the last thread of softness in me stretch thin. "Try me." 2 words, calm. His eyes narrowed. "Don't be dramatic." 3 words, his favorite leash. I stepped forward until I was at the counter. The phone lay there, glowing. The tumbler sat near his hand. I could smell his cologne, expensive, bright, empty, layered over the lemon-polished air. Marcus leaned in slightly, voice lower, meant to sound intimate. "Sign and disappear." 3 words. A command. I looked at the ring on my finger again. The diamond flashed under the penthouse lights like a tiny spotlight. I slid it off. Slowly. Deliberately. The metal left a pale indentation in my skin, a mark of ownership that faded as soon as it met air. I held the ring between my thumb and forefinger and felt how cold it was, how indifferent. Marcus watched, his mouth parting just slightly as if he didn't understand that this wasn't a threat. It was a decision. I set the ring down on the marble. It clicked once, small, sharp, and the sound traveled farther than it should have. On the speaker, someone fell silent. Marcus's face tightened. "Mara." 1 word, warning. I didn't raise my voice. "You're the enemy?" 3 words. Flat, accurate. His eyes flashed with anger, then he caught himself, caught the audience, and tried to laugh it off. "You're tired." 2 words, dismissal. "I'm awake," I said. 2 words. Final. Marcus's hand moved toward the ring like it still belonged to him. His fingers hovered, then stopped when he realized he couldn't touch it without admitting what it meant. He straightened his shirt cuffs, resetting his posture. "You'll regret this." 3 words. He needed me afraid. I reached down and picked up my boots, still laced, still heavy, still mine. The leather smelled like dust and the faint sharpness of polish from a life that required readiness. I held them by the heels like I was carrying evidence. Marcus scoffed softly, aiming for the deepest cut he could find. "Guard dog," he said. 2 words, spat. I met his eyes one last time. "Not yours." 2 words, clean. Marking that line inside me felt like drawing a boundary on a map. I turned and walked out, barefoot. The marble was cold under my soles, and each step felt like taking my body back from a room that wanted me decorative. Behind me, Marcus's voice rose toward the phone, too smooth, too quick, as he tried to cover the moment. "Sorry," he said, light. "Minor disruption." 2 words. Lies. I didn't stop. The elevator doors slid open with a soft sigh. I stepped in, boots in hand, duffel left behind on purpose. The doors closed, cutting off the penthouse's polished air, and for the first time in years I could breathe without asking permission. As the elevator descended, my phone vibrated in my pocket, one notification after another. Bank alerts, account changes, freezes. Marcus had moved fast. Of course he had. I stared at my bare feet on the elevator floor and felt a calm, slow-burning anger settle into place like a plan forming, because he had called me a bad investment. He had forgotten what army discipline did to women like me. It didn't break us. It built an engine. When the elevator opened to the lobby, cold night air rushed in as the doors turned, smelling like wet stone and car exhaust. I stepped out barefoot, into the world, boots swinging from my fist, and I didn't look back at the building that had tried to make me small. The lobby's revolving door exhaled cold air onto my bare feet, and the granite outside bit like punishment. Headlights smeared across wet pavement. A valet's radio crackled somewhere behind me, tinny and cheerful, like nothing inside that building had just cracked my life in half. I stood under the awning with my boots swinging from my fist, laces tapping against my knuckles, and watched my phone light up again and again. Account login, new device, transfer initiated, card declined, freeze requested. Marcus had moved fast, the way men moved when they thought speed was the same thing as power. I forced my breathing down into something steady. In the army, you didn't get to panic just because someone tried to take your legs out from under you. You checked the situation. You secured what mattered. You did it in order. A doorman glanced at my uniform, then at my bare feet, then away like he'd just seen a problem he didn't want to inherit. The city smelled like rain and exhaust, sharp and metallic. I stepped off the awning into the night anyway, cold stone flattening the heat out of my soles. The first ATM I tried spat my card back like it was offended. I stood there under the fluorescent glow of a pharmacy sign, the light making my skin look pale and unreal. The screen flashed transaction denied. The machine hummed and blinked, indifferent. I stared at the message until it stopped feeling like text and started feeling like Marcus's hand on the back of my neck. I called the bank. A recorded voice thanked me for my patience. I wasn't patient. I was precise. When a representative finally came on, her tone was syrup sweet. "How can I help you tonight?" I kept my voice level. My accounts were frozen. 4 words. There was keyboard clicking, fast and clinical. "I'm seeing a security hold," she said, "requested by an authorized user." My jaw tightened. "Who?" 1 word, a pause. "Your spouse." 2 words. The air in my lungs went cold. I looked at my boots in my hand, mud on the soles, scuffs on the toes, and felt the absurdity of being trained for supply chains and crisis response while the person closest to me quietly cut my access to money like he was turning off a light. "He can't do that," I said. 4 words. Not loud. "He can," she replied gently. "On joint accounts." 4 words. The kind of truth that tasted like rust. "What about my personal savings?" I asked. 4 words. More clicking. Her tone shifted, less syrup, more caution. "That account is also restricted." 5 words. I felt my heartbeat try to speed up and refused it. "Under what authority?" 3 words, another pause. "A power of attorney on file." 7 words. The world didn't tilt, it sharpened. "A power of attorney," I repeated. 3 words flat. "Yes," she said, and I heard the strain now like she knew what she was saying could ruin someone. "It was submitted last month." 6 words. Last month. When I'd been buried in back-to-back field problems, sleeping in 4-hour slices, living on coffee and mission tempo, I hadn't signed anything last month except supply manifests and training evaluations. "I didn't sign that," I said. 4 words. Silence on the line, brief but heavy. "Ma'am," she said carefully, "I can escalate to fraud review." 8 words. "Do it," I said. 2 words. She asked for verification questions. I answered them without emotion. Street names, childhood address, the last 4 of my social. The sound of her typing felt like a clock starting. "Fraud review will contact you," she said finally. "For now, the hold stays." 9 words. "Send me the POA," I said. 4 words. "We can email a copy," she replied, "to the address on file." 9 words. I ended the call and stood under the pharmacy sign, letting the cold air sting my cheeks. My hands shook once, then steadied. Not fear, adrenaline turning into purpose. Marcus hadn't just insulted my uniform. He'd tried to weaponize the system against me. I looked down at my bare feet again and felt something fierce and quiet rise in my chest. He wanted me humiliated. Fine. I would be humiliatingly documented. I walked into the pharmacy and bought the cheapest flip-flops I could find. The rubber smelled faintly like chemicals, and the straps bit between my toes, but at least I wasn't bleeding pride onto Georgetown pavement. In the parking lot, I opened my email on my phone. There it was. A message from the bank's automated system with an attachment link. Power of attorney. Received. My thumb hovered, then pressed. The PDF loaded slowly. The screen's glow lit my hands blue in the dark. My name was typed correctly, my address, my date of birth. Marcus's name listed as agent. And at the bottom, a signature that was supposed to be mine. It looked like mine the way a forged bill looked like money. Close enough for a casual glance, wrong enough to make your stomach drop when you lived in reality. The slant was off, the pressure was wrong, the loop on the M tried too hard. I stared at it until my eyes burned. A sound left my throat. Small, controlled, something between a breath and a laugh. Marcus had called me bad debt. While he signed my name like I was an account number, I took a screenshot, then another. Then I saved the PDF to a secure folder, evidence first, emotion later. I slid into my car, an old, reliable sedan that smelled faintly of sunscreen and stale coffee, and sat for a moment with my forehead resting lightly against the steering wheel. The vinyl was cool. My breath fogged the wheel in short bursts. The last time I'd felt this kind of cold anger, I'd been 19. Back then, my father's factory had taught me what men did when they thought you couldn't fight back. The machines had screamed all day, metal on metal, and the air had tasted like oil and heat. My dad would come home with grime in the creases of his hands and sit at the kitchen table, shoulders slumped, boots kicked off. He'd point at my homework with a blunt finger. Know your numbers, he'd say. 3 words. I'd roll my eyes like a kid who didn't understand survival was math. He'd lean closer, voice lower. And don't let them price you. 6 words. He meant employers, landlords, men. I'd joined the army anyway. Scholarship, commission, a straight line out of a life where every emergency was personal. I learned to run logistics like a second language. Inventories, convoys, deadlines that didn't care if you were tired. I learned to look calm while everything burned around you. I should have recognized Marcus the first time he talked about value. He'd been charming at a fundraiser, a glass of whiskey in his hand, city light on his cufflinks. He'd asked me what I did, and when I said, logistics officer, he'd smiled like he respected the word officer more than the work behind it. Discipline, he'd said, that's rare. 3 words, a hook. I'd believed him because it felt good to be admired without being pitied. Because the army taught me strength was currency, and Marcus acted like he wanted to invest in it. Now I understood what kind of investor he was. The kind who stripped a company for parts and called it strategy. My phone vibrated again. A new email this time. Subject line crisp and legal. Notice of temporary financial restraint. Filed. My throat tightened. He hadn't just frozen accounts. He'd filed something to lock me out further. Paper warfare, his favorite kind. I opened it. A law firm letterhead. Polite language, aggressive intent. It claimed he was protecting marital assets due to instability and unpredictable absences. Absences. Like deployment was a character flaw. I took screenshots, saved it, forwarded it to myself, to my personal backup, and to one more address I hadn't used in years, the base legal assistance intake email. Then I started the car. I didn't go back to the penthouse. I didn't beg at a door I'd already walked out of. I drove toward Fort Myer, and the kind of lodging designed for people who understood duty didn't pause for heartbreak. The base at night smelled like damp grass and diesel. Streetlights cast hard pools of light on empty sidewalks. My uniform suddenly made sense again here, fabric and rules in a world where signatures mattered. At the transient billeting desk, a tired civilian clerk looked up, eyes flicking to my rank. Ma'am, she said, need a room? 3 words. Yes, I said. 1 word. She slid a form across the counter. The paper was warm from a printer. The pen was chained to the desk like trust had conditions. I filled it out quickly, hand steady, the army version of me taking over. When I got to the room, the air smelled faintly of detergent and old carpet. The bedspread was stiff. The lighting was harsh. It wasn't comfort, but it was safe. It was neutral ground. I set my boots on the floor by the bed and stared at them for a long moment. Muddy, scarred, real. I thought of the ring I'd left on Marcus's marble like a dropped coin, and I felt the two symbols split clean in my mind. His world was polish, mine was traction. I called legal assistance first thing the next morning. A captain answered, voice brisk. Legal, how can we help? I kept my voice calm. I need a referral, financial fraud. 5 words. There was a pause, then the tone changed. Are you safe? 3 words. Yes, I said, but he forged a POA. 6 words. Silence, then an email everything? 2 words I did. I sent the PDF, the bank hold notice, the attorney letter, timestamps, screenshots. I wrote a short timeline with dates and locations, field exercise, base, duty roster, because my life had always been documented, and Marcus didn't understand that was my advantage. When I hit send, I didn't feel relief. I felt the first hinge of a plan, because Marcus had made one mistake in his rush. He'd attacked the one part of me that never forgot procedure. He'd tried to win in the dark with a forged signature. So I decided, quietly, that I would drag his strategy into light, into a room full of people who cared about compliance more than charisma. My phone buzzed as if he sensed the shift. A text from Marcus. Come back, we'll fix it. 6 words. I stared at it, then set the phone down without replying. On my bedside table, the bank PDF glowed on my screen, my name, his authority, my forged signature. And in the stillness of that bland room, I realized the next move wasn't emotional. It was logistical. I was going to reroute my life out of his control. And I was going to make sure the reroute happened publicly, with witnesses, so he couldn't ever call it minor disruption again. I left Marcus's text unanswered and treated it like any other suspicious signal. Log it, screenshot it, preserve it. Morning light came through the billeting blinds in pale stripes, making the stiff bedspread look even more institutional. The room smelled faintly of detergent and old carpet. My boots sat by the door like they were standing guard, still crusted with mud from a life Marcus called bad debt. I showered fast, pulled my hair tight, and put on my uniform like I was stepping into a briefing, not a personal war. The fabric felt crisp and familiar against my skin. Something earned. Something real. At legal assistance, the waiting area was full of quiet tension. A young specialist clutching papers, an older NCO staring at the floor, a spouse bouncing a toddler on one knee. The air smelled like burnt coffee and printer heat, and the fluorescent lights flattened everyone into the same tired shade. When they called me back, the JAG captain, Hernandez, didn't waste time. He had a neat desk, a tidy stack of folders, and the look of a man who had heard every version of betrayal and still believed in procedure. Captain Ellis, he said. Tell me what happened. I slid my phone across the desk with the PDF already open. Forgery, I said. 1 word, the cleanest truth I had. He skimmed the power of attorney, his eyes tracking the page like a scope. This was filed last month, he said. 3 words, calm. I was in the field, I replied. 4 words, a fact with teeth. He looked up. You signed this? 3 words. No, I said. 1 word. He nodded once and reached for a pen. Timeline, he said. 1 word. My favorite language. I gave him dates, locations, duty rosters. I explained the bank freeze, the joint accounts, the attorney letter claiming instability. Hernandez didn't react with pity. He reacted with structure. First, he said, tapping the desk lightly, we revoke any POA. 5 words. Second, he continued, we report suspected forgery. 4 words. Third, he said, we protect your pay. 5 words. I watched my own breathing slow. This was what I trusted. Steps. He pulled a form from a drawer and slid it toward me. The paper was warm from the printer, the ink sharp and black. This is revocation, he said. We'll send it to the bank and any known parties. 12 words. I signed, my hand steady, my slant unmistakably mine. Hernandez compared my signature to the one on the PDF and let out a small exhale. Not even close, he said. 3 words. Confirmation, not comfort. He leaned back slightly. Do you have a safe account? I shook my head once. He froze everything. 3 words. Today, he said, you open a new account at a different institution. 13 words, but it felt like freedom described in administrative terms. What about my LES? I asked. 3 words. We redirect direct deposit, he replied. Finance can help. 7 words. He paused, then added, also, credit. 1 word, heavy. I felt my jaw tighten. He can... Hernandez held up a hand. He tried, he said, so you lock it. 7 words. He gave me a checklist and a set of contacts. Finance office, credit bureaus, local police for a report, and the bank's fraud unit escalation number. He also gave me something quieter, more lethal. SKRA, he said. 1 word. I blinked. That applies? 2 words. It can, he said. He's using your service against you. 9 words, and my stomach went cold with recognition. Marcus had called my deployment unpredictable absences, like duty was a flaw. Hernandez's voice stayed steady. You're not unstable, he said. You're documented. 6 words, a reminder of my advantage. As I gathered my papers, he glanced at my boots. You walked out barefoot? 5 words. Yes, I said. 1 word. He nodded once, not judging. Good, he said. You left the stage. 5 words, and I felt that land deeper than I expected. Outside the office, the base air smelled like diesel and damp grass. A generator hummed in the distance. I walked across the parking lot with my folder tucked under one arm and my phone in my hand, moving with the calm of someone who had decided the next 30 days would be mine again. Finance helped faster than I expected. The office was a maze of counters and laminated signs, the kind of place built to swallow time. The clerk's nails clicked against a keyboard while I stood at parade rest, eyes forward. Direct deposit change? She asked. 2 words. Yes, I said, immediate. 2 words. She glanced at my rank, then my paperwork, and her tone shifted into competence. We can route to a new account within a cycle, she said. 12 words. I opened a new account that afternoon at a credit union off-post. The building smelled like fresh paint and air conditioning. The teller spoke softly while I handed over my ID, my proof of residence, my calm. Any reason you're switching? She asked. 4 words. Fraud, I said. 1 word. Her eyes sharpened, and she didn't ask anything else. By evening, my credit was frozen. My pay was rerouted. My phone was full of confirmation emails that felt like sandbags stacked against a flood. And then the bank fraud unit called back. A woman's voice came through, cool and professional. Captain Ellis, she said, we received your escalation. 6 words. Thank you, I replied. 1 word. Controlled. We're placing a temporary block, she continued, and we need verification. 10 words. What kind? I asked. 2 words. Notary details, she said. This POA has a notary stamp. 9 words. I opened the PDF again and zoomed in on the seal area I'd barely noticed in the dark under that pharmacy sign. There it was. A notary name, commission number, and county. My throat tightened. Because Marcus wasn't a notary, he had help. Read it to me, the fraud agent said. 4 words. I read the name aloud, slow. The agent paused. We know that notary, she said. 4 words and my skin went cold. You do? I asked. 2 words. She's associated with multiple high-risk filings, the agent replied. We're requesting her journal. 12 words. A mini-turn, quiet but seismic. The problem wasn't just Marcus's contempt. It was a network of shortcuts wearing legal clothes. Will you reverse the freeze? I asked. 5 words. We can't yet, she said. But we can schedule a compliance meeting. 12 words. When? I asked. One word. Tomorrow, she said. In person. 3 words. Public. Who attends? I asked. 2 words. Bank compliance, she said, and any parties who requested the hold. 12 words. My mouth went dry. He'll come. 3 words. I didn't even phrase it as a question. There was a brief silence on the line, then, we recommend you bring counsel. 7 words. I will, I said. 2 words. When I hung up, the billeting room felt smaller. The air smelled like detergent, but underneath it I could taste adrenaline, metallic, familiar. My phone vibrated again. Marcus. A call this time, not a text. I stared at it for a beat, then answered on speaker without saying hello. His voice came through smooth, rehearsed. Mara. 1 word. Ownership disguised as affection. What? I said. 1 word, no warmth. He exhaled like I was exhausting him. Stop escalating. 2 words. You forged my name, I said. 4 words. Calm. A pause, just long enough to tell me he heard it as a threat. Then he recovered. You're overreacting. 2 words, the oldest trick. Bank compliance disagrees, I said. 3 words, his tone sharpened. Don't go. 3 words. I'm going, I said. 2 words. He tried softer. We can fix this. 4 words. Return what you stole, I said. 4 words. His voice dropped, a hiss wrapped in calm. You'll lose everything. 3 words. He needed me afraid. I looked at my boots by the door, muddy, steady, and felt something settle into place. I already left, I said. 3 words. He went quiet for a half second. Then the contempt returned, smaller and meaner. Guard dog, he said. 2 words. I didn't raise my voice. Not yours, I said. 2 words. I ended the call. A minute later, an email hit my inbox from an unfamiliar address, calendar invite attached. Investor dinner. Hartwell Capital. Attendance required. Location? The Georgetown penthouse. Dress code? Formal. Notes. Spouse attendance requested. I stared at the invite until the screen blurred. He wasn't just trying to isolate me financially, he was trying to parade me one last time as proof he still controlled the narrative. My phone buzzed again with a second email, this one from the bank fraud agent. Compliance meeting confirmed. Both parties present. 2 rooms appeared in my mind like doors on a hallway. One was Marcus's stage, polished marble, laughter, humiliation on speakerphone. The other was a bank conference room, glass walls, documents, and people who cared about stamps more than charm. I picked up my boots and set them neatly side by side, toes facing forward like they were ready to move on command. Then I opened my notes app and wrote 1 line. Meet him where evidence wins. And when I looked up, I realized I wasn't afraid of tomorrow. I was ready to make him explain his signature in front of witnesses who wouldn't laugh. The next morning, the bank's conference room smelled like glass cleaner and burnt coffee, and the carpet swallowed footsteps the way expensive places swallowed consequences. I walked in wearing my uniform and my boots, mud cleaned off, scuffs still honest. The leather creaked when I shifted my weight, a small sound that reminded me I wasn't built for marble. I was built for traction. Hernandez met me at the lobby entrance, not in uniform, but with the same clipped calm he used in legal briefs. He didn't carry a dramatic briefcase. He carried a thin folder and the kind of certainty that made liars nervous. Stay short, he murmured. 2 words, a plan. I will, I said. 2 words, an oath. A compliance manager led us down a hallway lined with framed stock photos, smiling families, golden light, fake safety. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly overhead. My phone vibrated once in my pocket, but I didn't look. The door to the conference room was glass, witness-friendly. Inside, a long table waited with 3 chairs on one side and 3 on the other. A small speaker sat near the center like a neutral threat. A woman in a navy blazer, compliance, opened a laptop. A man with a thick folder, fraud, set it down with a controlled thump that felt like a gavel choosing its spot. Captain Ellis, the compliance manager said. Thank you for coming. 5 words, careful. I nodded once. Thank you. 2 words. She gestured toward the chair nearest the door. I sat with my back straight, hands folded, boots planted. Hernandez took the seat beside me. The fraud investigator clicked his pen once, a dry sound in the clean air. We're here, compliance began, to address the account restraint and the power of attorney on file. 21 words, smooth, official. I kept it simple. It's forged. 2 words, the truth didn't need padding. The fraud investigator opened his folder. Paper whispered, crisp and sharp. We received your escalation, he said. We also initiated internal review. 12 words. Any findings? Hernandez asked. 2 words. The fraud investigator slid a printed page across the table, stopping it in front of me. Notary seal, he said. Commission is under scrutiny. 8 words. My eyes dropped to the notary name and number. Black ink, tidy lies. My stomach tightened, but my face didn't change. I had stared at worse on mission boards. Compliance watched me, Bate. We'll need you to provide a specimen signature, she said, and we'll need your deployment and training location verification. 22 words. I have both, I said. 3 words. Hernandez placed my packet on the table. Duty roster excerpts, field exercise orders, the date-stamped training log. The fraud investigator took it without comment and flipped through, eyes moving fast. Then the glass conference room door opened again, and Marcus walked in like the room owed him applause. He wore a tailored suit, hair perfect, smile loaded. The air shifted with his cologne, bright, expensive, empty, and for a second I heard his voice from the penthouse speaker. Guard dog. He glanced at my uniform, then at Hernandez. His smile tightened at the edges. Morning, Marcus said. 1 word, too sweet. Compliance gestured politely. Mr. Hale, please sit. 5 words. Marcus corrected her without blinking. Mercer. 1 word. Ownership of even his name. He sat across from me and placed his phone face up on the table like a weapon. His wedding band caught the light. Gold, polished, still on his finger. Mine was gone. I felt the faint pale indentation where my ring used to sit, like a bruise fading. Compliance folded her hands. This is a formal review, she said. We have concerns regarding authorization and notarization. 17 words. Marcus spread his palms. I protected assets. 3 words. A performance. I didn't speak. Hernandez did. By forging her name? He asked. 4 words. Clean. Marcus's eyes flicked to me, then away. She approved it. 3 words. Lie, effortless. The fraud investigator's pen paused midair. Captain Ellis, he said. Did you sign the POA? 7 words. No, I said. 1 word. Marcus gave a small laugh. She's upset. 2 words. Dismissal. Compliance's voice stayed flat. We also received a temporary restraint notice filed by your counsel. 14 words. Marcus leaned back, crossing his legs. Standard, he said. 1 word. Hernandez leaned forward slightly. Show us the original signed POA. 7 words. Marcus's jaw tightened. It's filed. 2 words. Evasion. The fraud investigator slid another sheet forward. We contacted the notary, he said. She claims she met Captain Ellis in person. 14 words. The room went very still. I felt my boots on the carpet, solid, real, and kept my voice calm. She didn't. 2 words. Marcus's smile twitched. See, he said. Unstable. 2 words, a cut aimed at my credibility. Hernandez didn't react. He slid my training log closer to compliance. She was in the field, he said. These are official orders. 10 words. Compliance scanned the dates, eyes narrowing. The fraud investigator compared them to his page and made a small silent adjustment in his posture. interest turning into certainty. Marcus noticed. His foot stopped bouncing. Compliance looked up. Mr. Mercer, she said, do you have any proof that Captain Ellis appeared before the notary? 16 words. Marcus's mouth opened, then closed. She did, he said. 2 words, weak now. The fraud investigator's voice stayed calm. We requested the notary journal, he said. We also requested building footage. 12 words. Marcus's eyes flashed. Footage? 1 word. The first honest panic. Compliance didn't soften. Yes, she said. This is a fraud concern. 6 words. Marcus leaned toward me, voice lower. Stop. 1 word. Private command. I met his eyes. No. 1 word. Public boundary. He tried a different angle, softer, aimed at the room. She disappears for months, he said. I manage. 7 words. Making duty sound like defect. I kept my tone even. My absence isn't consent. 4 words. The fraud investigator clicked his pen and finally set it down. We're freezing the restraint request, he said. And we're separating accounts pending investigation. 15 words. Marcus's smile cracked. You can't. 2 words. Compliance's gaze held him. We can. 2 words. The words landed like a stamp. Marcus's fingers tightened around his phone. This is absurd. 3 words. Hernandez's voice was mild. Forgery is absurd. 3 words. Marcus's eyes darted to me, sharp with warning. You'll regret this. 3 words. He needed fear to return. I didn't raise my voice. I regret trusting you. 4 words. The past finally named. For the first time since I'd walked into that penthouse, Marcus looked like he couldn't find the right face to wear. His charm didn't stick to glass walls and compliance folders. Compliance closed her laptop with a soft click. We'll send written determinations, she said. Do not attempt further holds. 14 words. Marcus stood too fast. His chair legs scraped the carpet, a harsh sound in the clean room. We're not done. 3 words. A threat. The fraud investigator didn't look impressed. We are, he said. 2 words. Marcus turned to me as if the room had disappeared. Come home. 2 words, ownership again. I stayed seated, boots planted. I already left. 3 words. He stared at me, breathing tight, then spun toward the door. His cologne trailed behind him like an empty flag. When the glass door shut, the room exhaled. Compliance looked at me. Captain Ellis, she said, we're referring the notary file to authorities. 12 words. Hernandez nodded once. Good. 1 word. The fraud investigator added, we'll also issue a letter confirming suspected fraud. 12 words. I felt something loosen in my chest, not relief, not joy, stability. A system finally choosing the right side. Outside, the wind was sharp and smelled like wet stone. My boots hit the sidewalk with solid, honest thuds. Mark wasn't there today. This wasn't his battlefield, but I felt his steadiness anyway, like a hand on my back from far away. My phone vibrated the moment we reached my car. A new email. Investor dinner. Reminder. Tonight. My name was on the RSVP line, not mine. Hernandez leaned in to read over my shoulder. His mouth flattened. He's setting a stage. 4 words. I stared at the screen until the words stopped being letters and became intent. Marcus wanted witnesses, his witnesses, so he could paint me as the unstable soldier wife who lost it in public. He wanted to humiliate me into compliance. I swallowed once, tasting cold air and old anger. Then I'll bring mine. 4 words. Hernandez's eyes sharpened. Who? 1 word. I looked down at my boots, then at the bank's glass doors behind us. Compliance, I said. And documentation. 2 words. He nodded once. Shib. Careful, he said. 1 word, heavy. I opened a new message and typed a short reply to the fraud investigator. Fingers steady. If he hosts an investor event tonight, I want the fraud letter ready. Then I forwarded the invite to Hernandez. Then, only then, I texted Marcus back for the first time. I'll be there. 3 were. The reply came almost instantly. Wear something nice, smile, forwards, a leash he still believed in. I set the phone down and started the car. The engine's hum filled the quiet, steady as discipline. My boots pressed the floor mat. My uniform felt like armor again. Not to fight, but to stand. Because tonight, Marcus was going to try to turn me into entertainment. And I was going to turn his forged signature into a public liability he couldn't laugh off. By late afternoon, the fraud letter sat in my email, like a sealed blade. Hernandez had told me not to print it at work, so I printed it at the base library. Public printer, date stamp, witness cameras. The paper came out warm and smelled like toner. I held it by the edges, careful, as if fingerprints mattered more than pride. Outside, the sky hung low and gray. The air smelled like wet grass and diesel from the motor pool, and my boots thudded on the sidewalk with a steadiness that made my breathing match their rhythm. In my room, I laid everything out on the stiff bedspread like a mission kit. The bank's fraud acknowledgement letter, my revocation forms, the compliance meeting summary, the notary name and commission number, and the investor dinner invite Marcus had sent like a leash. I didn't bring the whole war chest. I brought the minimum needed to end it. My phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. I answered. Ellis. One word, controlled. This is Patel, a man said, bank fraud investigator. 5 words. His voice sounded tired in a way that meant he'd seen too much. Yes, I said. 1 word. I can't attend your dinner, he said. But I can authorize a formal notice. 12 words. I stared at the printed letter on my bed. I need it witnessed. 4 words. There was a pause. We can email a verification code, he said, and we'll call during the meeting if needed. 14 words, a lifeline with conditions. Send it, I said. 2 words. He did, and my phone chimed a second later. The code looked small on the screen, but it felt like a key turning. A second call came in right after. Hernandez. You still going? He asked. 3 words. Yes, I said. 1 word. You keep it clean, he said. No yelling, no reaching. 9 words. I won't touch him, I replied. I'll touch paper. 6 words. Hernandez exhaled once. Good, he said. Also, he filed something. 4 words. My stomach tightened. What? I said. 1 word. Emergency motion, he said, to freeze retirement access. 8 words. My blood went cold. Using the POA? 3 words. Likely, he said. We're countering it. 3 words. The system moving, but slow. I looked at the investor invite again. Tonight, 7:30. Marcus's polished stage. Then tonight matters, I said. 3 words. Hernandez didn't argue. I'll be nearby, he said. Not in the room. 7 words. Thank you, I said. 2 words. I meant it. After I hung up, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my boots. The leather was scuffed, honest. Mud had dried in the seams. They looked like work, not decoration. Marcus wanted me in silk and a smile. So I wore both worlds. I showered, then pulled on a simple black dress, knee-length, clean lines, no softness he could interpret as surrender. I kept my hair tight. I left my dog tags off. I put my uniform jacket in my bag anyway, folded like a flag. Then I slid my boots on. Not because they matched, because they were mine. The rubber soles gripped the floor as I walked, and the sound of each step felt like a promise. At 7:12, I drove back into Georgetown. Rain had started again, fine and cold, turning the city lights into smears. The streets smelled like wet stone and exhaust. I parked 2 blocks away from the building, not because I was afraid, but because I didn't want the valet to touch anything I carried. In my bag, the fraud letter, printed. The verification code, a small recorder, legal where I was, already set to timestamp, my phone on silent. I walked to the building through the rain, boots tapping on the sidewalk, the sound steady against the hush of umbrellas and passing cars. The doorman recognized me. His eyes flicked to my boots, then to my face, then away like he didn't know what kind of story I was tonight. Evening, ma'am, he said. 2 words. I'm expected, I replied. 2 word, and he hesitated, then stepped aside. The lobby smelled like lemon polish and quiet money. The marble shone under soft lighting, flawless, as if no one in this building had ever been desperate. The elevator doors opened with a soft sigh. Inside, my reflection looked unfamiliar. Black dress, military posture, boots that didn't belong in luxury. I held my bag close and watched the floor numbers climb. My phone buzzed once, a text from Marcus. Smile. Don't embarrass me. 5 words. Still him. I didn't reply. The elevator chimed, and the doors slid open to the penthouse foyer. Warm light spilled out. Laughter drifted down the hall. The air smelled like citrus, cologne, and expensive food, truffle oil, and seared meat. I stepped out and let the elevator close behind me like a locked door. Marcus was waiting near the entry, exactly where a host should be. He wore a dark suit, open collar, that same charming face he used when he wanted a room to believe him. His eyes dropped to my boots. His smile tightened. You wore those, he said. 2 words, but the disgust did the work. I wore myself, I said. 3 words. Calm. He leaned in, voice low. Not tonight. 2 words, a command. I walked past him without touching him. Tonight is documented, I said. 3 words. A warning. The living room was full. Men in tailored suits, women in sleek dresses, glasses clinking softly. The city spread behind them through floor-to-ceiling glass like a painting someone bought to feel powerful. A jazz playlist murmured under the noise, too smooth to be real. A few heads turned toward me. Marcus lifted his hand, guiding attention away from the boots like he could erase them with a gesture. Everyone, he called. This is Mara. 8 words. He didn't say my rank, he didn't say my job, he wanted me small. I nodded once at the room. Good evening, I said. 2 words, polite, empty. An older man near the bar smiled. Marcus talks about you, he said. 5 words. Curious, not cruel. Marcus cut in fast. She's intense, he said, laughing. 3 words, a leash. I didn't react. I moved toward the counter where my ring still sat, if he hadn't hidden it. But the marble was bare. Of course it was. He didn't want any symbol of our fracture on display tonight. I felt the old heat try to rise. I pressed it down. Symbols were for him. Evidence was for me. Marcus guided a group toward the dining area, voice rising into host mode. We're discussing a new fund, he said. A disciplined strategy. 9 words. He loved the word discipline when it served him. I stood near the edge of the room, letting him perform. Then I saw it. A printed packet on the coffee table, clipped and branded with his firm's logo. A slide deck. A pitch. And under a heading called Risk Management, a line that made my stomach go cold. Contingency, spousal authorization in place. My name wasn't on that page, but the implication was he was selling my stolen signature as stability. My fingers tightened around my bag strap. The leather creaked softly. Mark would have said, breathe. So I breathed. I waited for the right moment. Marcus raised his glass near the dining table. To partnerships, he said. 2 words. The room lifted glasses. Crystal chimed. The sound was bright and thin. Then Marcus looked directly at me, smile sharpened, and added, and to loyalty. 3 words. The room laughed politely. I stepped forward just enough to enter his circle of light. Marcus's eyes warned me, don't. I kept my voice level. I need 1 minute, I said. 4 words, not a request, not a scene. Marcus chuckled. Later, he said. 1 word, control. I didn't raise my volume. Now, I said. 1 word, final. The laughter thinned. A few investors glanced at each other, sensing a shift in weather. Marcus tried charm again, softer. Mara, he said, don't do this. 5 words. I held his gaze. You forged my name, I said. 4 words. Clean. Silence spread in a small ripple, glasses lowering, forks pausing, the jazz suddenly too loud. Marcus's smile stayed on, but his eyes hardened. You're confused, he said. 2 words, dismissal. I reached into my bag and pulled out the printed fraud letter, still crisp. The paper caught the light. I didn't wave it. I didn't brandish it. I placed it on the dining table beside his wine bottle like it belonged there. The room leaned in without moving. Marcus's voice dropped. Put that away. 3 words. Panic. I looked around at the faces. People who cared about risk, legality, reputation. People who didn't love me but loved rules. I'm not here for drama, I said. I'm here for compliance. 10 words. Someone near the window went still, eyes narrowing in professional instinct. Marcus tried to laugh it off. She's tired, he said. 2 words. Weak. I tapped the top of the letter once with my fingertip. Verification code is in your email, I said. 8 words. Marcus's nostrils flared. The first crack. One of the investors, woman, silver hair, sharp eyes, asked quietly, Is this about fraud? 5 words. Marcus snapped, too fast. No. 1 word, too loud. I kept my voice calm. Ask your bank, I said. 3 words. The room didn't explode into shouting. It tightened into attention. And I felt, for the first time in his world, that Marcus didn't control the air anymore. My phone buzzed once in my pocket. Patel's number. I didn't answer yet. I let it ring, soft and insistent, like a timer starting. Marcus stared at my boots, then at the letter, then at the faces around him that had stopped laughing. And his hand, his smooth, charming hand, began to shake as he reached for the paper. Marcus's hand began to shake as he reached for the paper. The jazz kept murmuring, too smooth for what was happening. Candlelight flickered against wine glasses, and the air still carried that rich, oily scent of truffle and seared meat. Money trying to smell like certainty. Around the table, faces stayed polite, but their eyes had turned sharp. No one wanted to be in a room with risk they hadn't priced in. My phone vibrated again in my pocket. Patel. Marcus's fingertips grazed the top edge of the fraud letter, like he could erase it by touch. Don't, he said. 1 word. Bear. I placed my hand over the paper, not grabbing, not yanking, just stopping his reach with calm. Hands off, I said. 2 words. His smile twitched on, then off. You're crazy, he hissed. 2 words. Cheap. I looked at the silver-haired investor who'd asked the question. Then I looked back at Marcus. Answer them, I said. 2 words, a redirect. He leaned toward the room, trying to reclaim the air. It's a misunderstanding. 3 words, weak. I pulled my phone out and let it ring once more where everyone could see the screen. Patel, bank fraud. The name was plain, not dramatic, not personal. It was the kind of label that made Suits stop chewing. Marcus's eyes widened a fraction. Don't pick up. 3 words. Panic. I pressed accept and set the phone on the table between the wine bottle and his branded pitch packet. I tapped speaker. A soft click. Then Patel's voice filled the space, calm, professional, unromantic. Captain Ellis, this is Patel, he said. Bank fraud unit? 9 words. The room changed, not with gasps, with attention. Marcus's jaw tightened. He tried to smile into it. Hi, he said quickly. I'm her husband. 5 words, grabbing for control. Patel didn't warm. This call is recorded, he said. 4 words. A few glasses lowered. Someone's chair shifted. The jazz kept going, but it sounded suddenly nervous, like a soundtrack that didn't understand the scene. Patel continued, Captain Ellis requested verification for suspected forged POA. 10 words. Marcus's face held its host shape, but his eyes went hard. That's false. 2 words, too fast. I didn't look at the room. I looked at the paper. I kept my voice steady. Confirm the notary, I said. 3 words. Patel's tone stayed flat. Notary commission is flagged, he said. Journal requested. 8 words. A quiet ripple moved around the table, tiny, involuntary. Risk managers had a sixth sense for the word flagged. Marcus leaned in toward my phone, trying to charm the air. "You're talking to investors," he said. 4 words, a threat disguised as concern. Patel didn't care who was listening. "We also confirmed Captain Ellis was not present," he said, "on the notarization date." 16 words, but his cadence made it sound like a single locked door. Marcus's lips parted. Then he recovered with a laugh that didn't find anyone. "She disappears," he said. "She forgets things." 6 words, trying to make duty sound like dementia. I didn't bite. "Read the phrase," when I said. 3 words. Patel paused just long enough to make it land. "Captain Ellis's signature appears inconsistent," he said. "We are treating the POA as suspected forgery." 16 words. The word forgery sat on the table like a weight. The silver-haired investor's eyes narrowed, and she didn't look at me. She looked at Marcus. "Did you file it?" she asked. 4 words. Marcus's smile stretched thin. "No," he said. 1 word. Patel's voice continued, steady as a metronome. "The account restraint was initiated using the POA," he said, "by the named agent." 15 words. Named agent. Every head at that table understood what that meant. Marcus's face flushed at the caller. He snapped, too sharp. "End the call." 3 words. I didn't raise my voice. "Keep talking," I said. 2 words. Patel obliged. "We are issuing a written fraud acknowledgement," he said. "Verification code matches the letter provided." 14 words. I slid the letter slightly so the heading faced the table. No theatrics. Just orientation. The room went very still. Not uncomfortable still. Decisive still. A man near the window, tall, watch expensive, set his glass down carefully. The sound of crystal on wood was soft, but it carried. "Marcus," he said, "is this real?" 4 words. Marcus looked around like a magician whose assistant had walked off stage. "It's being exaggerated," he said. 3 words. Desperate. The silver-haired investor didn't blink. "Fraud is an exaggeration," she said. 3 words. Marcus turned on her, voice sharpened. "You don't understand." 3 words, insulting the one person he needed. She tilted her head slightly, calm. "I understand risk," she said. 3 words. A blade. Patel's voice cut through again. "Captain Ellis, for your safety," he said. "We recommend no further contact without counsel." 13 words. "Understood," I said. 1 word. Marcus stared at my boots, then at my face, as if he hated that I'd brought traction into his museum. "Guard dog," he muttered. 2 words. Spat. I didn't flinch. I kept my tone low, surgical. "Not yours," I said. 2 words. Patel continued. "We are also referring the notary file to authorities." 11 words. The word authorities did what my anger never could. It drained Marcus's color. He reached for my phone. Mark had told me once that the most dangerous men weren't the loud ones. They were the ones who thought they were entitled to grab. I moved first, not fast, not frantic, just precise. I slid the phone closer to me and placed my palm over it. "No," I said. 1 word, final. Marcus froze with his hand hovering in midair. Across the room, someone stopped laughing entirely, as if the concept suddenly seemed inappropriate in the presence of consequence. The silver-haired investor rose slowly from her chair. The movement drew eyes like gravity. "Patel," she said into the speaker, "what does this mean for any funds connected to Mr. Mercer?" 12 words. Patel didn't hesitate. "I can't advise on investments," he said, "but any transactions relying on the POA are subject to review." 17 words, still clinical. Review. That was the word that made the room reevaluate him in real time. Marcus tried to speak. "This is..." 2 words died in his throat. The investor's gaze stayed on him, not cruel, just clear. "We're done tonight," she said. 4 words. A man beside her nodded once, then another, like dominoes falling quietly. Chairs shifted back. A few people began collecting coats with the careful politeness of people who didn't want to get splashed. Marcus's smile returned for one last attempt, too bright. "Everyone, please!" 2 words pleading under the polish. No one listened. That was the first time I'd ever seen his charm fail in a room he curated. Patel's voice came through again, gentle, only because it was professional. "Captain Ellis, I'll email the formal letter and next steps." 11 words. "Thank you," I said. 2 words. I ended the call and slipped the phone into my bag. The jazz kept playing, but now it sounded lonely. Marcus stood there by the table, hands slightly spread, as if he could physically catch the evening before it fell apart. His eyes cut to me, sharp with fury. "You planned this." 3 words, accusation. I kept my voice calm, reality anchored. "You forged it," I said. 3 words. Cause, effect. He leaned in, voice low, vicious. "You'll have nothing." 4 words. Threat. I looked at his pitch packet on the coffee table, the line about spousal authorization, the tidy little lie that had been meant to reassure strangers while he locked me out. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. I looked back at him. "You priced me wrong," I said. "Compliance doesn't negotiate." 7 words. His eyes flickered, shock first, then hatred, because he understood that line wasn't for him. It was for the room. Behind us, a man near the hallway stopped and turned back, gaze moving from Marcus to my boots to the fraud letter still on the table. He raised his hands and began to clap. Slowly. Once, twice, then another person joined, quiet, deliberate, until the sound spread into a restrained, slow clap that didn't celebrate me so much as it punished him. Not loud, not chaotic, just unmistakably public. Marcus stood frozen in it like the applause had pinned his suit to his skin. He snapped, voice too sharp. "Stop!" 1 word, powerless. No one stopped. The silver-haired investor picked up her coat and glanced at him one last time. "Fix your house," she said. 3 words, a verdict. People filed out with the soft rustle of fabric and the muted click of heels, leaving behind half-full glasses and the smell of expensive food cooling. The penthouse began to feel like what it really was, a room made for appearances, empty when appearances turned. Marcus's breathing got louder. He pointed at my boots as if they were the crime. "You humiliated me." 3 words. His true wound. I didn't raise my voice. "You tried to erase me," I said. 5 words. Mine. He took a step closer, and for a second I saw the man who had weaponized paperwork and called it restructuring. His face tightened into something raw. "Give me the letter." 4 words. Last grasp. I slid the fraud letter back into my bag, slow enough that he could see I wasn't hiding anything. "It's already filed," I said. 4 words. He stared at me like he wanted to grab the air and tear it. Then he turned abruptly, storming toward the hallway, shoulders stiff, anger tripping over fear. As he passed the marble counter, I noticed something small and bright tucked behind a decorative bowl, an object hidden like shame. My wedding ring. He'd moved it out of sight for tonight. Of course he had. I walked to it without rushing. The marble was cool under my fingertips as I picked the ring up. The diamond caught the penthouse light like a tiny, indifferent spotlight. I held it between my thumb and forefinger for a moment. Then I set it down again, this time on the center of the dining table, where it couldn't be hidden. It clicked once, sharp and final. I slung my bag over my shoulder and walked toward the elevator, boots steady on marble. Each step, a quiet refusal. Behind me, Marcus's voice cracked, small with rage. "Mara!" 1 word, too late. The elevator doors slid open with a soft sigh, and I stepped inside without looking back. As the doors began to close, my phone vibrated in my bag. 1 new email, subject line clean and lethal. Notary, journal received, video attached. The elevator's ceiling lights flickered once as the doors slid shut. and the penthouse's laughter vanished like it had been edited out. My boots squeaked softly on the brushed metal floor. Still wrong in that building, still honest, and the air inside the elevator smelled faintly of perfume and cold machinery. I pulled my phone out of my bag and opened the email with hands that didn't tremble. Notary journal received. Video attached. I tapped the attachment. A grainy clip, loaded, time-stamped, with a static camera angle that looked down at a desk. The lighting was fluorescent and flat, the kind that turned lies into paperwork. I could hear a muffled fan somewhere in the background, a steady whir like a cheap alibi. Then Marcus stepped into frame. Suit jacket, perfect hair. That same easy smile. He sat down at the notary's desk like he belonged there and slid a document forward. The notary, woman, mid-40s, angled the page toward him. Her stamp sat beside her hand like a loaded tool. Marcus didn't look nervous. He looked bored. The notary pointed at the signature line. Marcus picked up the pen and signed, slow, deliberate, forming my name with the same confident contempt I'd heard on speakerphone. Not sloppy, not rushed, practiced. Then, like he couldn't resist, he glanced up at the camera and smiled. A tiny, private smirk. As if the system itself was his audience, my throat went tight, but my posture stayed straight. I paused the video on that frame, his face frozen in certainty, and saved it to 3 places: my secure folder, my backup drive, and a new email draft addressed to Hernandez. The elevator chimed at the lobby floor. The doors opened to lemon-polished air and soft lighting, like nothing had happened upstairs. The marble under my boots felt colder down here, a museum floor for people who believed consequences were optional. I walked out without rushing. The doorman glanced up and hesitated when he saw my face. "Evening, ma'am," he said. 2 words, careful. I nodded once, quoted, "Good night." 2 words. Final. Outside, rain misted the sidewalk, and the city smelled like wet stone and exhaust. I stood under the awning for one steady breath and forwarded the video. To Hernandez, to Patel, to the bank compliance manager, to the address on Marcus's restraint notice, his attorney. Then I added one more recipient, Marcus's firm's general counsel email, pulled from the pitch packet branding I'd memorized in a single glance. I didn't write a speech, I wrote 1 line. Attached, video evidence of forged POA signing and notary involvement. That was it. I hit send. The moment the email left, something eased inside my chest. Not relief, not joy, just the clean sensation of a lever finally moving the right direction. My phone buzzed instantly. Marcus. I didn't answer. It buzzed again. Then a text, delete it, now, 3 words, panic stripped of polish. I stared at the message until it felt small. Then I set the phone in my bag and walked through the rain to my car, boots tapping a steady rhythm on the sidewalk. The drive back to base felt quieter than it should have. Wipers swept rain away in a steady shush shush, and the dashboard lights glowed soft blue. I tasted stale adrenaline and kept my breathing slow. At billeting, I didn't collapse. I worked. I printed the video still frame. Marcus's face, camera timestamp visible. At the base library again, the printer whining as it spit out the page warm and smelling of toner. I added it to my folder behind the fraud letter and the bank acknowledgement. Paper, stamp, time. The next morning, my phone rang at 7:06 a.m. Patel. I answered immediately. Ellis. 1 word. His tone was different today, less procedural, more definite. Captain Ellis, he said, we reviewed the video. 7 words. And? I asked. 1 word. We're reversing the restraint, he said, effective immediately. 5 words. Air hit my lungs like it was new. I kept my voice steady anyway. And the notary? 3 words. Referred, he said, and we're filing a suspicious activity report. 11 words. Thank you, I said. 2 words. I meant it. Hernandez called a minute later. You sent it to his firm. 5 words. Yes, I said. 1 word. A pause, then a low exhale. Good, he said. They'll cut him loose. 5 words. Consequence in corporate terms. What about my retirement access? I asked. 6 words. Emergency motion got pulled, he said. His counsel withdrew it. 9 words. I closed my eyes once, slow. Marcus had always been brave in private and careful in public. Now he'd been forced into public. Next step? I asked. 2 words. Hernandez's voice stayed calm. Protective order, he said, and divorce filings. We do it clean. 10 words. Clean was my favorite kind of ending. That afternoon, I met Hernandez at the courthouse annex. Not a dramatic courtroom, just a bright administrative wing where people filed for safety like they filed for permits. The air smelled like old paper and floor polish. My boots echoed in the hallway, steady, and I carried my folder like it weighed nothing. Marcus's attorney was there. Marcus wasn't. Of course he wasn't. His attorney approached with a tight smile. Captain Ellis, he said, we'd like to resolve this amicably. 8 words. I kept my voice level. Return my access. Confirm the fraud. 6 words. He blinked once. The bank has already... I cut him off gently. On paper. 2 words. He nodded, swallowing. We can provide written stipulations. 6 words. Hernandez stepped beside me like a door closing. And fees, he said. 2 words. The attorney's mouth tightened. We'll discuss. 2 words. I didn't argue. I didn't need to. The video had already done the heavy lifting. People didn't fight evidence that could be subpoenaed. In a small hearing room, a judge with tired eyes reviewed the request for a protective order and scanned the exhibits. The fluorescent light above us buzzed softly. My hands stayed folded. My boots stayed planted. The judge looked up at me. Your active duty. 3 words. Yes, Your Honor, I said. 3 words. She glanced at the still frame, Marcus smiling at the camera mid-forgery, and her expression hardened. Order granted, she said. No contact, no financial interference. 9 words. I didn't exhale loud. I just nodded once, as if receiving orders. Outside the hearing room, Hernandez handed me the signed copy. The paper was warm from the printer, and the ink looked darker than it should have. Done, he said. 1 word, not done forever. Done enough. My phone buzzed as we walked out. Marcus again. This time it wasn't a call. It was a voice message, auto-transcribed in my notifications. You ruined my life. 4 words. I deleted it without opening the audio. That night, I drove back to Georgetown one last time. Not to reconcile, not to cry on marble, not to retrieve a duffel I'd left behind on purpose. I went for one thing only. My name. The building's lobby smelled the same, lemon polish and quiet money. But the doorman's eyes were different now. He didn't look away when he saw my boots. Ma'am, he said softly, your husband isn't home. 6 words. I'm not here for him, I said. 5 words. He hesitated, then nodded and handed me a visitor slip like it was a courtesy and a warning. The elevator carried me up in silence, the machinery humming like a neutral witness. When the penthouse door opened, the air inside smelled faintly of cooled food and expensive candle wax. The lights were dimmer. The room felt less like a stage and more like an empty set after the audience had left. My duffel sat by the entry exactly where I dropped it, as if Marcus had been afraid to touch the one thing that smelled like real work. I lifted it and felt the familiar weight of fabric, gear, reality. On the dining table, my wedding ring still sat in the center where I'd left it, small, bright, and irrelevant. The diamond caught the city light and threw it back without warmth. I didn't put it on. I didn't pocket it like a prize. I walked to the kitchen, opened a drawer, found a small padded envelope, and placed the ring inside. The envelope felt cheap in my hand, and I liked that. Then I wrote one line on the front. Return to sender. No speech. No note. Begging for closure, I slung my duffel over my shoulder and turned to leave. And that's when Marcus stepped out from the hallway. He looked wrung out, tie loosened, eyes red around the edges, but the contempt was still there like a reflex. He saw the duffel and flinched as if reality offended him. You made me a joke, he said. 5 words, not remorse, reputation. I kept my voice calm. You signed my name. 4 words, the only truth that mattered. He took one step closer, hands open like he was offering peace, Freddy. We can fix this. 4 words. I didn't move. No, I said. 1 word. Final. His jaw tightened. I loved you. 3 words, too late. I held his gaze, Kate. You valued me, I said. That's different. 6 words. His eyes flashed. You're nothing without me. 5 words. The last cut. I let a small silence sit between us, long enough for him to feel it, short enough that I didn't drown in it. Then I answered softly. I'm supply, I said. I rewrote. 5 words. He stared like he didn't understand the language, because he didn't. He spoke in leverage and image. I spoke in systems and consequence. I walked past him without touching him. He didn't follow. Men like Marcus didn't chase when the room stopped clapping. In the elevator down, my duffel strap pressed into my shoulder, familiar and grounding. The city lights blurred through the glass as rain streaked the windows. My boots stood solid on the floor, and I felt, in my bones, how different traction was from polish. Outside that the air smelled like wet pavement. I got into my car and sat for one quiet moment before turning the key. My phone buzzed. An email from the bank confirming the freeze reversal, the fraud flag, the notary referral. Another from Hernandez with the protective order attached, signed and time-stamped. Paper, stamp, time. I drove back toward base with the heater low and my hands steady on the wheel. Marcus had called me bad debt. He'd been wrong about the one thing that mattered. I wasn't debt. I was accountability with boots on. Truth doesn't bargain with charm.